An exciting race at IMS is exactly what we needed to kick off racing at IMS this year. I'm so excited for the Indy 500. We're less than 2 weeks away. Qualifications are this weekend. Oh my God, it was the first day of practice today. It's really exciting. Okay, I'm Rachel, and this is my Indy Grand Prix race rambling. So as I said, pretty good race. I actually enjoyed it. I think we'll get into my thoughts on sort of the changes IndyCar made in general and kind of the place where IndyCar is at right now. But spoiler alert, I think we're headed into a good direction. I think this was probably the best race we had this season. That's kind of biased because there was some real overtakes for the lead, which is obviously exciting. I mean, I guess we'll just get into it. Rahal actually overtaking Alex Palou into the first corner and keeping it was pretty fantastic. He kept it for a pretty good chunk too. And that was interesting because they run well in Indy. It's not super surprising to me that they qualified P2. They've done well at the Indy road course. They kind of do well here and then fall off everywhere else. It's not really an indication of anything, but I think just the fact that he was able to overtake Alex Palou is a positive sign. And I mean, we'll talk about this, but like, season's not over. Like, anything can happen. I mean, granted, it's harder to say that in a spec series like IndyCar. Like, we feel more comfortable saying that in F1, but even like, you know, with 2022, we were like, oh my God, is it ever going to end? So, or sorry, 2023. So, you know, there's always something to change, but I think it was nice to see somebody actually overtake Alex Palou for the lead. Granted, of course, he was never really going to keep that once his strategy was decided. The moment he decided to do the opposite of what Alex Palou did in terms of tire strategy, it just kind of screwed him over because it meant he was going to be on the hards to finish the race. And they were all very convinced. Jameson's Cup especially was very convinced that you did not want to be on the hards to end the race, and obviously that was correct. Though if I remember correctly, Alex Palou re-overtook Graham Rahal prior to that happening. So. But it was nice to see him there for a little bit. In the end, he ended up having a bad stop, which potentially saved a collision coming out of the pit lane. So he was never really going to win it, but it was nice to kind of see something different for once and an actual overtake for the lead, which we're even kind of lacking in F1. It feels like there's a lot of racing. Like in F1, there's even, well, I don't even want to say there's variety in who's winning because it's like kind of Oscar Piastri everywhere. But always nice to see overtakes for the lead. How many ways can I say that? Okay. And there was some differences in the strategies, which I was kind of concerned that the mandated 3 pit stops, 2 of each set of tire, was going to prevent, because it means just everybody's going to do 3 stop. Like, is anybody really doing a 4 stop? The answer is no. But it's nice to see that there was enough differentiation in between what people used and when. Hopefully that will keep up. Otherwise, I don't know. I think that's something to keep an eye on because I do think it's nice to see people trying to fuel save. And I don't know. I really think that's something that's going to have to play out. I mean, I'm no engineer. I don't know how this is going to like factor into people trying anything. I think just by mandating the 3 stops anyways, I don't know if anybody's ever going to be racing so hard that they're going to need to do a 4 stop. I don't know, but again, I do like the 3 stops just because it does bring up some variety in terms of what can happen in the pits. Because there is room, just because there isn't room necessarily for a massive fuel save a la Scott Dixon, there's still room for an overtake or undertake. The undertake was really prominent this race. Am I saying that correctly? All of a sudden in my racing knowledge is undercut. The undercut. Dude, brain fart. I've been working too long today. The undercut was very prominent this race. It really, all it takes is like the in-lap and the out-lap to really make a difference. So I think that still has enough room for excitement. And honestly, it kind of helps the issue that I was calling out about pit strategy being interesting but being hard to communicate. Though they were better at it this weekend, and I have a point on that. But yeah, I think it's easier to follow undercuts and overcuts when they happen within 5 laps of each other. It's a lot harder to keep people understanding what is happening when somebody's doing a 2-stop versus a 3-stop. and now the unlikely 3 versus 4 stop sort of thing. Okay, Joseph Newgarden, I just have to like call out. Joseph Newgarden is like literally the anti-Alex Palou, which is really interesting. Oh my god, that's actually really interesting. I've never really like quite thought of it that way, but here I am thinking, well, like he had an issue before the start of the race, which kind of caused an issue, caused an aborted start, whatever. But he is like so dominant on the ovals. He's won the last 2 Indy 500s. I mean, you almost go into the Indy 500 forgetting about him if he wasn't the 2-time reigning champion, just because he's like not been anywhere really. At the end of last season, he's not been anywhere really super prominently. The start of this season, he's never fantastic on the road courses, and in the end, that can hurt him in the championship, which is literally the opposite for Alex Palou. He like wins every other race that's on an oval. He's never. I was reminded today watching practice. Never won an oval. Not just never won an Indy 500, never won an oval, and we'll talk about that. But it's just interesting how they're complete opposites. I almost brought that up to say you wonder if Joseph Newgarden is going to go into the Indy 500 feeling a bit uncomfortable, but I think the Indy 500 is such a specific thing, and ovals separately are such a specific thing that the fact that we haven't been to one yet this season, like, he's going to be feeling fine. Yeah. I don't know. I think this is a little interesting rivalry there. I still think that bit of Joseph Newgarden's commercial where he said he wrote a kid's book and everyone loved it, and Alex Palou came on and said, my kid hated it, is sort of the best thing ever, and we need to like figure out how to do that more, because I think even like strategy, that's all a storyline. We just have to figure out how to have prominent storylines. Speaking of, did we know that there was still going to be a mini like 5 or 100 days to Indy thing? I didn't know that until I was watching practice today. And it seems it's all happening, well, first episode May 22nd, which they say 2-3 parts or something all on Fox. I hope I'll have a way to watch that. I still haven't been able to watch the second season of 100 Days to Indy in Canada, so obviously that was a bit of didn't quite work out. But that's kind of part of a larger conversation. I see so many attempts to hit another Drive to Survive, even in other sports. They're really trying in the horse world right now. There was that polo one that I watched 2 episodes of and was like, ugh. And there's some other one right now that just came out. Yeah, I think even like Breakpoint for tennis, it got me into tennis, but they canceled it after 2 seasons. Like Drive to Survive is just not replicable, especially. Well, I mean, the new NASCAR Full Speed just came out. I haven't watched that. But even like I watched it and I didn't get into NASCAR. I don't know. I think it's interesting that IndyCar is trying, but I don't think the Drive to Survive or even television format is necessarily working anymore. Anyways, that's a side tangent. Something interesting to think about, though. In a slow week, I could evaluate that. Okay. There's so many videos I want to make and, like, not enough time. Anyways, so that excitement for the caution. We were far too excited for a caution. I'm sad that it came at the expense of David Malukas, who I haven't seen this season. That's what happens when you go to the dark side. It'll be exciting to see the Indy 500. I'm excited to see what he does in the Indy 500. I think they've got the Penske partnership. Santino Ferrucci always gets too close for my liking. And that'll be interesting to see. It sucks that the caution came at his expense, but it was exciting, I guess, that we had a caution. That's also something interesting to point out, just like the hybrid of it all. That's such an easy fix, though. Like, just cut that out. But also, how much of it is the hybrid versus, like, have we had people were only racing at 80% because of the tires? Were they even racing hard enough to have a big enough incident? Like, we haven't even really been seeing anybody rubbing too close together or anything, so maybe it's not a coincidence that the time we saw a caution is the time where they've mandated the 3 stop with the 2 compounds, running both compounds twice. So, something to think about. And again, like, that's such an easy fix. Part of it is increasing the racing, which will increase the likelihood for a yellow, which they're doing with the tires, and the other part of it is you can just take away the ability to auto restart the car during a competitive racing session. I think it's useful in practice and qualifying even, but not so much during a race. I think the yellows do add something. Okay. We'll go back to this and then talk about Alex Palou. I want to hit this point because I think it was prompted by me talking about David Malukas. I miss the Meyer Shank. I feel like I haven't seen the Meyer Shank this season. It was nice to see David Malukas in the Meyer Shank when he was there. Even with Felix, like I haven't been seeing it much this season. I don't know what's up. I saw it maybe the most today when they were talking about Felix's Creed car. I feel like Alex Rossi is very jealous of that car, but I kind of missed them. Where is Meyer Shank? Come back. And then part of that, Prema check-in, where are they? I feel like I haven't seen the Premas on my screen. I'm literally going to look up the IndyCar Championship standings because where are the Premas? Even today, I think they kind of came out pretty late for practice. I mean, that's not super surprising considering it's like their first year, but I almost feel like they're not even, okay, P24 and 27, or sorry, 26. Could be a lot worse. That's actually not true. They're second last and fourth last in the championship so far. It'll take them time. It's just interesting. I feel like that was kind of something I was mentioning when, in the same vein of me mentioning Will Buxton, it was a good choice because he's a familiar face and voice from F1. Prema's from the same European world, they're in all F2, F3, WEC, everything. Maybe you would have thought they would have capitalized on that a bit more, especially with like Callum Ilott and Robert Schwartzman, very recognizable faces even in the F1 world, I'd say. Even for people who don't watch F2 or F3, kind of interesting. I feel like I haven't seen much capitalization of that. Anyways, now we will talk about Alex Palou. Like, what can you even say? Second lead when the caution came out, and he was not even 20 laps or something in between when he overtook and when the caution came out. Like, my comment is, what's his problem? And then Hinch said something along the lines of, oh, I'll tell you why he's so good. No, I can't figure it out. Like, actually, what's his problem? And this season is actually something crazy different because it's never been like this. This is Max Verstappen 2023, and it's crazier because it's a spec series. How is he doing it? Like, it's him. It's not the car, it's him. It's fully him. Because, okay, so leading the championship, who is the next Ganassi? The next Ganassi is Scott Dixon in P6. What? Both of our McLaren boys are up there. Christian Lundgaard, P3, Pato O'Ward, P4. Pato got good points this weekend, finishing second. That was nice. Nice to see that. I'm trying to remember how he got there, and I can't quite. I think it was just, I wrote this down. Apologies. I don't remember how he got ahead of Scott McLaughlin, but he got a real overtake on Will Power, so that was exciting. We're talking about Pato here. And this was all sort of connected to Colton Herta, who I thought I talked about, but I think I forgot, who had an issue at the start, ended up falling all behind, unlapped himself, had multiple overtakes to unlap himself, kind of got in some people's way, kind of got in Scott McLaughlin's way. That's what happened. He got in Scott McLaughlin's way. Everybody was cheering because they wanted an American to win, and Scott McLaughlin was threatening that. So by him getting in, by Herta getting in Scott McLaughlin's way, kept an American in the lead, and also helped Herta's American overtaking him. That's crazy. Yeah, he completely blocked the Scott McLaughlin's potential undercut. Then he didn't move ahead too much ahead of that. And eventually Palou did lap him again. And he eventually retired. What's with that? Him and Marcus Ericsson retiring today for seemingly technical reasons. I don't think it had anything to do with the racing. Apologies if that is not true. And Marcus Ericsson got in some massive shunt that I completely blanked about. But that's interesting to see. And see, that's also where room for the strategies to come out at play in a much more visible way, in a much more communicatable way. So that was kind of nice to see. Obviously, you don't want to see like Colton Herta having issues at the start. That guy's luck is like seriously like what? Thank God he won in Toronto last year. He needed that. Okay, I think I hit most of my thoughts on the racing there. Sorry about that. Multiple overtakes. Okay, yeah, this was a good point. Right after, a couple laps after the yellow flag, multiple people 3 separate overtakes were occurring at the same time on the main straight. Lap 75, that was exciting. And I do have to say, I think the mandated pits have helped that. I think that, I mean, if the issue really was that people weren't racing because they knew they were just going to kill their tires, then you have to make people race. And I get, like, it's a difficult balance because you have to make sure you don't end up in like a Qatar 2023 situation where everybody's on the verge of dying because it's so hot, and whatever happened, like, you know, people weren't prepared for that. But I think Indy cars maybe, you know, they do more pit stops anyways. I think they seem to think that they feel warmer in the car. Don't disagree considering the aero skin, but what do I know? So it's nice to see that something worked, because I feel there are so many things IndyCar doesn't try in, but there are also a lot of things IndyCar does try, and people get really loud when they feel like it didn't work. And even people are loud this weekend because didn't get as, I think it had like 100,000 less viewers than last year, but overall the season is still up from last year. I am like, obviously TV views are important. Like, obviously that's how you get money. That's how you have sponsors. That's how you have Honda. But it's not everything. And we have to remember that attendance is increasing, and that is also something valuable. I don't know, like, we can look to F1 for inspiration, but even, like I said, with Drive to Survive, it was such like a flash in the pan. That was a perfect thing for F1. IndyCar is very different from F1, and I think we do benefit from emphasizing the differences. And when you have a sport like F1 that has become so dominant, you are like, tell me a sport that has multiple leagues that are popular beyond like football. Like European football. The NFL is the only American football team. I can't think of any other major popular, I mean, this is coming from a very North American lens. This is really the only popular basketball league is like the NBA. Who else plays baseball? Who else plays hockey? I mean, other countries do, but even a lot of people come here, come to Canada, come to the NHL, come to the US. Honestly, tell me a league, a sport that has multiple super famous leagues, excluding football, which is a very local thing and a very international thing. You know, that kind of makes sense and whatever. And even that still has the Champions League, right? It still has its mecca. Like, I don't think... What I'm trying to say is that F1's popularity does open certain doors for IndyCar in terms of increasing the popularity of motorsports, period. But F1 is always going to remain the most popular motorsport, and in a lot of ways, bar attendance of events, which is why IndyCar is winning, it is, in that sense, it is more accessible to a lot of people. It's more popular to a lot of people. A lot of people are more likely to be casual fans of it, interact with it casually, and that's just not something that's going to happen to IndyCar because of F1's popularity. Like, F1 has dominated the market. It's got a big market share in it. There is still a limit to IndyCar's popularity, I think. And again, like, I don't know, I'm hoping I'm making sense when I say this and I'm not just repeating myself, but there's room for motorsport to grow, and it has. I think we've kind of hit the capacity on that. And with that, there's room for IndyCar to grow, but we still have to remember most people's knowledge ends at F1, and it's going to stay that way because, again, who is watching hockey in the UK? Is there a hockey league in the UK? I don't know. The NHL is so dominant, that's all anybody cares about. Okay. And there's also NASCAR. Like, come on. Okay, but in that line, speaking of the broadcast, they did do a good job at mentioning the strategy. They had the call out of the undercut, saying they think the undercut is working. They've called out that they think Rahal is going to have trouble because you want to end on top. So I appreciate them calling out the strategy, specifically mentioning that Rahal doing the opposite of Palou is what was hurting him. And there was also a call out that at a certain point, the top four were all on different strategies, which is nice to see. And again, proving that the mandated 3 stops doesn't interfere with strategy like I maybe hoped it would. TV direction had its downs, though. There was a point where Palou was challenging Rahal, and that all occurred during a commercial break. I watch on TSN Plus, so I get the international feed, which doesn't have commercials during a race, and so I'm able to see what you cannot see in the States while a commercial is running, and that was kind of crappy that was happening during a commercial break. They came in and kind of saved it, and they caught the actual overtake on camera, but there was like 20 seconds there before they got in, and that's kind of not ideal, but that's just kind of what happens when you have full screen ads, which is not ideal either, but we've got to be grateful for what we've got to a certain extent. They had a push to pass graphic sometimes, which I appreciated. What else, other graphic I'm begging for is I'm begging for interval timing. I've been begging for this for a while now. Please, I actually don't care how far somebody is from the leader. I want to see interval timing. Oh my God, like actually who cares? Final notes on the broadcast, where was the champagne? That's not really the broadcast's problem. But like, I mean, when you're showing the podium, and gosh, it's nice to see IndyCar on a real podium. It would have been nice to catch that on television, because I don't think they caught that in the end either. Whatever. Okay, kind of moving on from that, I have to mention one sort of rogue piece of information, still IndyCar related. Alexander Rossi had a baby. Oh my God. Apparently he had it on Wednesday, so he had his first weekend. His first race will not be the Indy 500 as a father, which I think is a good thing. Interesting timing. I guess like it works out well, the fact that he's like home the whole month, but also like you're going to be like trying to get you like your good sleep before the Indy 500 so you can like do well, and a baby's going to be waking up and crying. I mean, I don't know if they planned that. If they planned the timing of that, I think honestly, if they were trying, there's a lot of like if they were specifically trying to time it, which even like you can try as much as you want. If it doesn't always work that way, they probably would have tried for the 6-month-long off season, as Rossi loves to complain about. But congrats to him and his wife, and happy. It's cute that it happened in time for Mother's Day, and I kind of like when people keep the pregnancy a secret. Like, yeah, that's not our business. But I did also cry when Scott McLaughlin's wife showed announced her pregnancy, but it's also because that was to protect her by Beyonce, and I love Beyonce, and that's such a perfect song. She's just a cute little girl. Aww. Anyways, moving on. Another comment I have about Alex Palou and the Indy 500, we're sort of transitioning into that now. Like there's so many people you can be like, I can't even say who else. There's so many other people who you're like, they've got to win someday. And I believe Alex Palou can win. He can be fast there. He's got pull there. It's just kind of interesting that he's never won on an oval. I think he can win the 500, and they were talking about it in practice today. Like, you can be an IndyCar championship winner 20 times. If you've never won on a 500 / you've never won an oval, are you one of the greats? I don't know. It's one of those things that almost makes you want to see Alex Palou in F1, because it seems like it's right up his alley, and like at least circuit-wise. But I don't want him to leave, because God forbid. Well, I want our star to stay, but also God forbid he doesn't perform well. Everybody's going to be like, IndyCar sucks. They're not good. You know, I don't know. And you also do have to wonder how much he cares about the 500. Like, this is always an interesting question to me. How much do these drivers care about the 500 that they would be willing to leave and go to F1? Like, I think for Palou, if he ever got the chance to leave and go to F1, I think he'd have to really think about not necessarily giving up, because you can always come back. Even after you kind of retire, you can still do the 500. But limiting the amount you do. Saying, okay, while I'm in F1, can't do the 500. That cuts your chances. Like, I wonder how much that reigns in Alex Palou's head. I don't know. I don't know. I honestly feel like that's the biggest thing that keeps people in IndyCar, and I don't just mean leaving to other series, but like from retiring. They want to win the Indy 500, obviously. I'm just like looking at the championship, looking at like, who could it be? I don't know. I don't know. We'll just have to see. I mean, a week and a half, and maybe he'll do it. Moving on a little, still into testing today, just because it was the first day of testing. I'm gonna share some comments on that, though there's not too much to report considering everybody's still getting pretty comfy. Cars are kind of there. Obviously, always room to improve, but, you know, it takes a second to be able to go fast, like even just mentally. So, something I think that was interesting that Palou Award said is we've never been one to have good pace out front, and you need that when you're leading the last lap. Ugh. Yeah, you do. And that's almost what made it so heartbreaking last year, because he's like, was really nowhere. I really, like, he didn't qualify very well. I didn't really go into it expecting anything, and then strategy worked its way out, and he was there all of a sudden challenging. And he even almost lost it multiple times. The car was like not good, and he wrestled it there. And that's one of those things that proves that it's like, it's not up to you who wins. It's not up to anybody who wins. It's up to IMS who wins, baby. She decides. And you can do everything in your power and it still won't work out. So, oh my God, just deleting the last lap comment was like, geez, PTSD. Oh my God. I'm actually never going to get over that. I like get excited watching sports. I don't cry. I was hysterically sobbing I was hysterical afterwards, actually. I lost it. I'm a Palou fan, I am. But also I think like it's just his situation at the 500 is so, I can't say anymore. I can't. Okay. Something interesting that was brought up by Townsend is, I can't remember the actual number now, but the last couple of champs whose names are not Alex Palou hadn't won more than 4 races when they won the championship, which is so interesting because Palou's already won 4 races this season. Then James flipped it and mentioned a bunch of people who won more than 4 races and didn't win the championship. So that's, you know, it's never over until it's over. So that could be sooner than later this year. But I still think there's a lot to fight for even beyond that. I think this, like, Christian Lundgaard ahead, well, only by 2 points right now, of Palou Award is interesting. I have rated Lundgaard. He won in Toronto when I was there. I didn't expect this to happen. Especially in, like, I was going to say especially in Aero McLaren, but, like, shit, look at F1. Who's leading the championship right now? Oscar Piastri, not Lando Norris. I think that could be so interesting. And you almost feel like Aero McLaren has made Palou the real star of the team more than they ever made Lando the star of the team. Like, just the contracts he's been given and things. But that'll be an interesting shakeup. Also interesting to see how Will Power goes in P7 right now. Scott McLaughlin is ahead of him in P5, if we're thinking Penske. If I'm remembering correctly, he doesn't have a contract past this season. I'm not sure he is ready to leave. But I also don't, do we know how long David Malukas' contract is? Like, wasn't that always kind of the feeling that he was going to be the next one there? I think that would be so nice to see, but I'm like, do you know how else, like, we've got to think about where's Dennis Hauger going to go? He's all, like, he's won, I can't remember how many, but all races there's been this season, but all but one race this season so far in Indy Next. Haven't been able to watch that because I don't know if I can watch it in Canada. Well, I think I could if I got IndyCar Live, but IndyCar Live is so stupid because you can watch everything but the races. And I'm like, well, I can already watch everything on TSN Plus, bar Indy Next, but whatever. Where's he going to go? I think he could end up in a better team than we think. Like, sorry, who's in the Marcus Armstrong? No, Marcus Armstrong and the Meyer Shank and Felix Rosenquist. Because for some reason I'm feeling Dennis Hauger and a Meyer Shank, but no, I think they'll both stay there. I don't know. All right, now I'm just rambling about random things, and this is already 30 minutes, and I thought this was going to be a shorter video. So, Thank you for listening. Super excited for the Indy 500. I'm hoping to make a couple videos about that, but work has been a little hectic and I have been working longer than I've been intending to. So that's precarious, hence why this is posted late. My whole house is also beginning to be under construction, hence the different locations. So my filming time is limited, but I appreciate you all being here. Let me know if there's anything specific you'd like me to post about for the Indy 500, though you guys are not necessarily the audience for that. If you're here watching this and you're still at this point, I think you know a lot about the Indy 500. Maybe you just want to hear my opinion. If so, appreciate that. But I don't think I have to be the one. You probably didn't watch my beginner's guide. Anyways, thank you all for watching. If you are watching this and you'd like to listen to it, it's available on all podcast platforms. If you're listening to this and you'd like to watch it, it is also available on YouTube. Please like, comment, rate, subscribe, follow, share, all of the things, and I will see you hopefully pretty soon. I think I'm going to make another Indy 500 video this week. And then we've got a qualifying review that will come out post that, and also an F1 Imola race rambling that will come out next week. So lots of videos to make in the next week. Jeez, I'm like, I was like, oh my God, I leave next week to go to the Indy 500. Next week? Shit. All right, well, I'll see you wherever I see you. Thank you for watching. Bye.